Can you just kind of give me an idea of how your experience and background would inform the task of representing the 23rd District in the Missouri Assembly?
I think in General Assembly, you need to be able to do a lot of different things at a lot of different times. And I've had a lot of leadership experience, even at a young age, leading Marines. It's a very practical skill that you can take, even away from Fallujah, and those skills you learn. Working well under pressure, having to make quick decisions, and knowing that the decisions you make have long-term consequences is something I've dealt with before. So I think that's beneficial. Working for Claire McCaskill, getting a good view of the state as a whole. I worked on a lot of competitive. I worked for Jeff Harris's campaign 6 years ago here in the 23rd. I grew up in the 23rd. I know the 23rd very well. And I know how we view things, but sometimes it's good to get that statewide perspective as well. So I think I can match up knowing how somebody, how it's going to affect our district and our home, but also how it's going to affect the rest of the state, because in the end it is an interlocked community. What affects the rest of the state affects Columbia. So I think that's a benefit as well.
Okay. Well, on the subject of the 23rd District, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing people in the district and families in the district, and what would you want to address? Which of those challenges would you want to address as a representative in the Assembly?
Well, I think there's three major issues. Healthcare, education, and energy are the three. And that's, especially from an energy and a healthcare perspective, those are the biggest issues our country faces right now. But in the 23rd District, especially education and healthcare, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, it's a value that we hold very dear here. We're a college town that really shapes the culture of Columbia. We believe in taking care of the less fortunate, and we believe in the power of education to really transform lives, and as a value itself. And the second component of that is, if you look at the Columbia Public Schools, the University of Missouri, and all the hospitals in town, that accounts for almost 40% of the employment in Columbia. I mean, it's a very practical economic matter as well. When we, as a state, invest money in healthcare and education, Columbia does well. When we don't invest money in education, the state hurts, and Columbia itself hurts directly.
Okay. In what ways do your issues or proposed policies differ from the other candidates?
I think we are pretty similar on. We're both progressive candidates, and I think it's a good thing in terms of it's clear over the last 8 years, nationwide, 4 years in Missouri, that we need a new direction, and that Democrats are united in where we need to go. It's clear, I think, to everybody that we haven't been investing in healthcare. We haven't been investing in our own economic infrastructure. We haven't been investing in energy resources. So I think on the issues, we're pretty similar. I think the divergence is more on being able to get things done in Jefferson City. My campaign has received a tremendous amount of support. We'll give you an example. There's four major educational organizations, K through 12 education. There's three teacher groups: the Missouri American Federation of Teachers, the Missouri branch of the NEA, Missouri State Teacher Association, and then there's the Missouri School Administrators. All four of them disagree with each other on various issues. They're coming at it from different directions. There's some fundamental disagreements on how they want to approach education. Yet all four of them are united in supporting my campaign. I've been endorsed by all of them. And I think the reason for that is even if we don't see eye to eye on every issue, it's because they know that I know the issues well, and that I do have the ability to go out and articulate those issues and work with a wide variety of people to actually accomplish things and to accomplish those goals. And we've seen that across the board, getting endorsements from labor groups, from former state representatives, from former Governor Roger Wilson. And I think that's what really sets my candidacy apart.
Okay, well, you're actually talking about your candidacy, and I was going to ask you next, in what way does your campaign and the way it's being run reflect the way you would represent Central Missouri?
I think that's a great question, and I think you can't judge how somebody's going to work as a representative strictly from their campaign, but I think that is a good indication. And I think that broad-based support, we've had over 14, I think it's actually 15 now, with votevets.org endorsed me yesterday. I think that's about 15 organizations that have backed my campaign. Some key individuals, Representative Tim Harlan, who represented the 23rd District, Governor Roger Wilson, who has represented this community as a state senator, and then as governor. And I think that it's representative of my ability to include a lot of different people in the policymaking process and really listen to what their concerns are, know their issues, and then be willing to stand up for them. And the other thing that I think is sort of noteworthy about my campaign is I think I can bring a new dimension to the House Democrats. And I've talked to a lot of representatives down there, and they want me down there with them because I can add a whole new dimension to what they're able to do in Jefferson City. There are no Democratic Iraq War vets in Jefferson City. There's one Republican, and sometimes, on different issues, he gets up and he uses that as leverage, and the Democrats are unable to respond to that. And I've talked to current representatives who say, we need you in Jefferson City because you can do something that nobody else here can do right now. And I think that's a pretty powerful argument for why I should represent this district.
Okay, that kind of leads into another question I had, which is, that part of the legislative process is compromising and finding consensus where there won't naturally necessarily be one. What skills do you bring to that aspect of the job?
I think it starts with listening, because you can't really compromise until you understand what everybody wants and you can find that common ground. Let's take an example. Right now, tax increment and financing, or TIFs, are a big deal for a lot of communities. We've seen our first one in Columbia, and they're not approved at the state level. They're approved at the local level, but there's a lot of state regulations that sort of influence that. And when I was talking to different groups, I talked to education groups that were upset about this because it hurts the tax base of a local community, and they don't have a say. The local school board doesn't have a say in this. Then I talked to environmental groups, and they were concerned about using TIFs to develop wetlands. They're supposed to be used for redevelopment, not for new development. And so, I took these two things and put them together, and I've talked to the two groups, and they're interested in working together to sort of rework this. So I think really it's basically listening to a wide variety of groups. That an issue that you at first thought may have nothing to do with their goals and their perspectives in Jefferson City, but knowing the issue well enough to find that overlap, to listen to them, what they're saying, and then being willing to sit down and do the work to bring them together.
What would be on your to-do list if you become the 23rd District State Representative?
Well, one of the first things that I think all Democrats are united in is reversing the Medicaid cuts. A lot of people around the state were thrown off health care. Over 2,000 people in Boone County lost their health insurance. A lot more people had their health insurance cut. Things like vision and dental, hearing aids were no longer included. I think that's a universal goal for the Democrats across the board. One of my specific goals, one of the specific things that I want to propose, is actually a weatherization program. I was walking through the first ward back in I guess early April, and I was talking to people about issues that were concerning them, and they were still getting their heating bills from the winter, and heating bills are just astronomically high now. And so I looked into the program. I talked to some other people, and I learned about the LIHEAP, the Low Income Heating Assistance Program, which is a federal program that provides money to low-income people to heat their homes in the winter and cool them during the summer. And I've learned that Missouri is actually one of only 4 states that supplements that federal money with state general revenue. So 46 other states don't have to spend money on that, and we do. And then I looked at it a little bit closer. I talked to some people, and I noticed a lot of those low-income homes are so poorly insulated, so poorly weatherized, that a lot of that federal and state money is going right out the window. And I've talked to some other groups. There's a group in town here, the sheet metal workers, who go out and spend some time volunteering every year to weatherize a few homes. And I've learned that there's 125,000 homes in Missouri that receive heating assistance, money from the state and federal government. Of those 125,000, only 2,000 a year receive any sort of state or federal funding for weatherization. And that means that we are just pouring money into over 120,000 homes. It's going right out the window. And if we could take a percentage of that money, and I'm not even saying increase it, just take a percentage of it and use that to insulate homes and to weatherize homes, we would dramatically reduce those heating bills. We'd save the state money. We would reduce the amount of energy that had to be produced, which would help the environment. It's not an overwhelming change. It's not going to stop global warming by itself. But I think it's a small thing. It's a step in the right direction, and something that I think I could get done in Jefferson City.
Okay. And have people with the LIHEAP program, do they like that idea?
Well, the LIHEAP program itself is a federal program. So, and this could be done without any federal assistance. But I've talked to some people who do some private partnerships with it, and they're willing to get on board and work with it. I've talked to people in low-income areas, and they're very supportive of it. I've talked to some environmental groups, and they're supportive of it. So I think it's something that we talked about coalitions earlier. I think this is one that's got a potential to have a broad coalition on.